May I request our moderator, Mr. Choco Veliappa, who is the DC of Solar Group of Institutions, to please take over the session. I think all of our speakers have joined in here.
Yeah, hello. Hello and welcome to this afternoon session. I think, thank you, Mr. Gupta. We have a very elite panel here. Truly the leaders of education in India are here, because if you take the NIRF ranking, 35 out of the top 200 institutions in the NIRF ranking are in Tamil Nadu. So the leaders among education has been Tamil Nadu, one of the pioneering states in education across for several decades. And it's great that we have the leaders among that to be here in our elite panel today. So I think today we have Professor Salaivanan from Vice Chancellor of Vailtech. We have Dr. Anand Samuel, Vice Chancellor of Vellore Institute of Technology, Dr. Sasi Prabha from Satyabama University, Dr. P. Kaleraj from Bharatiyar University. So I think it's great that we have such eminent people across. So if you take Tamil Nadu as such, like 500 plus engineering colleges, 450 polytechnics, close to 600 arts and science colleges. I think it's indeed been a nucleus for the Center for Higher Learning. And Tamil Nadu has also been blessed with several other things. So today everyone is talking about the digital divide, and I think Tamil Nadu had a foresight of our Chief Minister, Madam Dr. J. Jayalalitha in 2011, actually distributing priceless laptops to millions of students over the years. So in that way, the students are better equipped to come into this post-COVID world, or the new normal that we're thinking of. And in many ways, COVID has been a problem for us, but I think COVID has also been a blessing in some ways for digital education, because now the true penetration of digital education can come into the new world. And in the sense that people are able to, in rural areas, get the same lessons that an urban student would be getting. And it's also the post-COVID world is going to be looking at more like the gig economy, where you work from home. More and more people are going to be working from home and things like that. So in that way, it is preparing the students to come and learn from there. So I have an eminent panel here today. So I thought we'll get into, I have a bunch of questions that were given to me by Digital Learning and ELTS, and also have a bunch of other questions. So I thought I will start off from the way that I see the screen in front of me. Today the most premier higher education institutions have started online classes, and how the institutions are coping with and online transitioning and things like that, especially in this COVID situation. So if I could start with Dr. Anand Samuel, please, the Vice Chancellor of the Institute of Technology. Okay. So if I can invite you. Yes.
Right. Am I audible there? Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you. And
am I audible, sir?
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Good afternoon to all the panelists and all the people who are participating. From VIT perspective, I would just say that pandemic has sort of distracted our path, but however, I just want to tell you that at VIT, somehow we had a foresight that we started all our digitization work 5 years earlier, and we had an ambition of making VIT as the 100% virtual university. So we had all the digitization in process, and we are almost about 95% digitized. So with that, even though pandemic was there, we did not face any problem. And from March, mid-March onwards, we have been doing all our job as usual, and starting from selecting the students, even interviewing the candidates, teacher candidates, and conducting online training programs, and all our day-to-day meetings. Everything has been going on online mode because we had all the system in place. The bandwidth was available, and so it was a cakewalk. And we could complete all our portions which were left behind incomplete in the month of April and all that. We had it done on online mode, and all our students had their examinations also written. And in this context, we would be happy to say that we have thought about having an online institute 2 years earlier, and we established a world-class studio at VIT, spending about 3+ crores of rupees. And with that, we were able to conduct all the online classes and also conduct online examinations. So it is business as usual at VIT. That's not an issue at all. And I would say that one point before I close the first session is that, see, we are all having the Generation Z students in our colleges. And for them, the earlier method, what we followed, is not something what is in tune with their psychological needs. They don't like to listen to lectures. They don't like to read books. They are very impatient. They don't want to sit in a classroom for 1 hour continuously and then continuously for 6 or 7 hours in a day and all that. But now everything has changed to suit their Generation Z psychological needs. So that way, the pandemic has done good to the students. And also we just see that the 100% attendance is being recorded now. It has never happened in the regular mode. So that way, the pandemic has not done anything harm. On the other hand, it has done something good to the education scenario, I would say.
Thank you, Mr. Samuel. Could I have Dr. Salavanan, Vice Chancellor of WailTech, please, sir?
Yeah. Good afternoon to everyone, sir. Due to COVID-19 pandemic situation, the students and faculty have to maintain social distancing, and hence the face-to-face teaching and learning is avoided, and the conduct of classes through online is promoted. But for engineering and science students, the faculty are finding it difficult to teach problematic subjects and to conduct practical classes through online. The students who want to get placed in software companies can have training to improve their skills in coding, programming soft skills, technical skills, and aptitude skills. Hence, the computer science students can easily develop their skills in these areas through online mode. For other engineering students belonging to mechanical, civil, electrical, etc., the actual hands-on training is not possible to be obtained, though some virtual labs are available. The AISTE has signed MOU with Learn Engineering to give exposure for the students through animated videos. To some extent, the students can utilize the online platforms to understand the concepts effectively. In online teaching, the faculty can include pre-recorded videos. It helps the students for flexible learning. That is also we are implementing here. And also, online courses are available in Swayam, NPTEL, Coursera, etc. The online teaching and learning has some advantages, that flexible time slot is available for faculty and students. Lifelong learning is also possible, and the commuting time is saved. The disadvantages are communication skills of the students are often neglected during online lessons due to the lack of face-to-face communication between peers, students, and teachers in an online setting. The students might find that they are unable to work effectively in a team setting. Moreover, the internet facility with the required bandwidth and laptop is not available for 70% of the student population in India. The government should take steps to provide the necessary facilities to poor and rural students. Because of COVID-19, we know that 45 crore people have lost their jobs across the globe. 160 crore students have been affected due to the closure of educational institutions. Online classes have been increased by 650%. The regulatory bodies of universities have agreed to include the 40% of online courses in their curriculum now. the online learning is supplementary to face-to-face learning, but this cannot be a replacement. Also, the students should be advised to read books beyond the online classes. The curriculum and syllabus are almost 90% similar across the universities. In future, the companies will look for candidates with knowledge in the respective domains. Life skills are more important than obtaining the degree certificates. The engineering and technology education system should be restructured as 60% practical and 40% theory by following blended model. Hence, our WellTech University has become the first member of India in CDIO, that is conceive, design, implement, operate, to introduce project-based learning system. It is the duty of all universities to prepare the students for job-relevant education. Thank you, sir.
Sir, you need to unmute.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Could I have the pleasure of getting Dr. Sasi Prabha, Vice Chancellor, Satyabama?
So very good afternoon to all the panelists and all the participants. I am really thankful to ELTS for having given me this opportunity to talk on the digitization of the Indian institutions to handle this pandemic situation. So we all know that, so we have to go for the blended learning, but we couldn't able to come out of our traditional conventional way of doing the teaching learning process. Now this COVID has made that change in almost all fields, right from school to this higher education level. So teachers are now able to make online, they're able to take classes in online, able to conduct test, everything in online with the support of the AI proctored tools. But that was not mature. Still, we need to have furthermore time to get a matured tools, proctored tools for conducting of examinations. Except the examinations point of view, and except this practicals which needs a hardcore engineering domain, they need hands-on sessions. Other than that, almost and the biotechnologies, wet laboratories cannot be made. Other than that, almost all the other laboratory sessions also we can able to conduct remotely through the use of virtual laboratories and remote laboratories. We could able to conduct the classes, laboratory classes, and all the teaching sessions we could able to manage with the support of online tools. So really we are thankful to the technologies, right from Zoom to other platforms. Really it is supporting us to conduct the classes in online, conduct the conferences. So now through this online platform, it is easy for the people to participate in conferences. We are able to get contact with all the international partnering institutions. So all the partners are able to connect easily, and through them we are able to conduct a lot of webinars, lot of e-conferences. So those things are now possible with the use of this online platform. Now we are able to accept, and we have to adapt the online setup. But I don't say we have to go with the online setup 100%. We can have 50% we can give chance, because this is effective. I would say this online teaching is also effective. Only thing is that empathy will not be there. So that face-to-face, so 50% we can able to compensate in face-to-face, and 50% we can able to surely devote this online platform also in future. So this COVID pandemic has made us to go in a real online mode, that's digitization mode. So the universities are concerned, the infrastructure wise, so most of the institutions, the top ranked institutions are able to adapt it easily, because as we know, right from March, we are conducting from Satyabama Institute of Science and Technology, we could able to conduct all our classes in online, and we purchased the online proctoring tools. Through that we conducted the examinations also, even arrear examinations we conducted in online, and then all our PhD Viva examinations we conducted in online, and all e-conferences. In fact, we conducted the culturals to make the students engaged. We conducted the culturals also in online, and we were actually appreciating the students through cash prize distributions. And we conducted the hackathons, online design contest, online quiz programs. Like that, we were able to make lot of engagements to the students and the faculty members during this pandemic through the online platform. And this is not the solution, but still we were able to manage it with the existing infrastructures. And right now, compulsorily we got to have a LMS, learning management system, should be there. Almost all the universities have already adopted. Still, the efficient utilization of this online platform is not possible. And it is a period where the staff members are able to equip them how to deliver the classes in online, how to prepare the contents online. So that is also going on, and I hope the next 6 months we'll be able to make this online classes, online e-contents by our university professors and other faculty members. See, if when we see the other institutions across the other countries, if you see, they have their platform already in practice, and we can able to listen the lectures of those professors in top institutions, global top institutions. So now, I think after this pandemic, after 1 or 2 years, our own faculty members, so we in no way our Indian faculty, Indian professors are inferior to other institutions, other professors of other global institutions. So this pandemic surely will lead our professors in the global map in almost all areas. And in Satyabama Institute of Technology is concerned, recently we started Center for Professional Career Advancement. So as per the call of PM's E-Vidya scheme, we established a center in July month. Through this Center for Professional Career Advancement, we started giving online courses. So right now we have not started online degree programs. We started the online certification programs and 1-year diploma programs. So now from September 15th onwards, we plan to start online certification program on AI and data science and data analytics, and then full stack development. So these programs we were able to launch because already we have got that infrastructure ready. And through the industry partners, we thought of launching this program and trying to make this program more effective. And our ultimate aim is to make the people ready for the workforce, industry ready. So that means the people who are doing their be undergraduate program or postgraduate program, or those who have completed their graduation, or those who are doing their job right now, they can able to upskill or reskill their career with the use of these online classes. So this is the one initiative we have made. And apart from that, as per the calls of AICTE, because now you know the AICTE is really, I should appreciate AICTE and MHRD. They have taken a lot of efforts, and really they are training our faculty members in almost all recent areas of importance. So AICTE has recently launched this NISP, National Innovation Startup Policy. They are giving the training to the coordinators of all the institutions of NISP. And through that, we are also formulating the startup policies of the institutions. So in line with NISP, already we have got the startup policy, but in line with NISP, we have started making our startup policy, and we are actually improving the innovation ecosystem in the institution. So institution itself, from the institution fund, we were able to divert to the innovators of our institutions, and we are actually making products which will be useful to the society. So right now, we have not full-fledged, it was not involved because of our academic engagements. Now this period we are using for producing innovative components, innovative products, which will be useful to the society. And through this UBA, MHRD has got a Unnat Bharat Abhiyan. So I think almost 1,500 institutions are participating in the UBA. Through that UBA, every institution has adopted 5 villages. So those 5 villages immediately, what all the technology development we have made in the institutions could able to immediately deliver to the institution, to the villages, and they can able to utilize the products which has evolved from the institutions. This is one of them. And then this period and this digitization is really helpful in getting the internships, research internships, other internships, online internships is also possible. Though this 10% hands-on that knowledge the people won't be getting, but the industries are now open-handed in giving this online internship to the students, that we are actually engaging our students for online internships. And we ourselves, we are utilizing our research infrastructures to give research internship to all the other researchers who are working in other institutions, other R&D organizations, so that we are able to make it. I hope this period will lead to getting a more ranking in the Global Innovation Index. In 2018, as per Global Innovation Index, India has ranked in 57th position. 2019, India has ranked in 52 position. I think the September 2nd, they are going to release this Global Innovation Index for 2020. So I hope Indian institutions will also compete the global arena, and we will also come up ahead of our ranking in this innovations concern. So I hope this our authorities concerned, our institutions, top management and top administrators could able to make use of this period effectively, and so as to produce good products, good innovative teaching learning pedagogies for the betterment of the student community. So this is my initial context. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. I think it is a very elaborate thing. So I have a bunch of questions. I'll come back to you on that. Okay. And could I have Dr. P. Kalairaj, Vice Chancellor Bharathidasan, to give his comments, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Chacko, and respected Vice Chancellors of various institutions. I am Dr. Kalairaj from Bharathiya University. I'm happy to inform you that we are on NIRF ranking 13 among the arts and science in the Indian universities. And our Honorable Chancellor, Governor of Tamil Nadu, he was very keen to incorporate the Vision 2030 of the Chancellor, where we want to prepare our students for what kind of jobs we are going to have in 2023, 2026, and 2030. And they wanted to have the curriculum where you have to incorporate Education 4 and Education 5, matching with Industries 4 and Industries 5. And the Bharathiya University, we already prepared, and many other universities also, they are working on that. All our curriculum, that is for starting from economics, sociology, up to computer science, we were able to incorporate the Industries 4 and Industries 5 components like artificial intelligence, then Internet of Things, big data analytics, mobile teaching, and so many other things in all the areas. So we were very much reluctant whether the affiliated colleges will be able to accept our syllabus or not. The COVID-19 made the people to accept it, because the COVID-19, it has created a platform warning the human community to look into the Darwin's theory of survival of the fittest. Now we have so many institutions, engineering institutions and arts and science, and many people started the institute with various ambition. Some are for establishing the education in the country, and some are even in the money-minded also. But it is going to be only the institute which is going to meet the challenges like COVID-19, they will be able to sustain. You can also question to what extent we can go for the e-content. For the science, we can go for about 40%. And for your arts, then management and all, we can go up to 50-55%. But nothing can compensate for the offline interaction. But I am very confident the situation will improve. Up to the time we are continue to start teaching some of the courses which are not involving the practical classes. So another important things that I would like to do is, so the university has incorporated the job-oriented certificate courses which can be taught by the online mode, and with the help of the industries, which is creating the job opportunities for the students to go for that. And the university is making the awareness to the teachers. Number one, the vice chancellors have to get confidence, and making the teachers to have the confidence to go for the online mode of teaching, because it is not only the computer science and management, the people are there with sociology, economics, and so many things in arts and science colleges. So right now we are educating the teachers to go for looking into the online mode, and teaching the best practices for teaching with the digital content, which is an important one, which is starting with developing a learning community, have an instructional purpose, then preview all content while you are going for the online mode, then scaffold understanding, plan for interaction, incorporate digital age skills, consider the lesson design, utilize a variety of content, personalized learning experience, encourage the multiple devices. So now we have the confidence of the people who are teaching and educating our teachers, and we have to also educate our affiliated colleges, the teachers who are in the affiliated colleges, and we are getting the students who are coming from the various sources, including the tribals, then from the, the remote villages. So we have to make sure that, our e-content has to reach them through the suitable mode of, reaching the end users. And we are very confident to face the challenges up till the COVID pandemic situation is going to be normal. And I am very confident all the teaching community will join with us. And I don't want to talk much because we have to have a lot of time for the panel discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kaliraj. So I think it's great that all the leaders have summed up their journey through this process. So let me sum up by giving some examples of what we have done at SONA. SONA College of Technology. So we've also adopted e-learning many years ago. So we were lucky that the Canadians came forward and actually helped us set up SONA Varsity distance e-learning program way back in 2000. And then since then, we've been, once Jayalalitha, Dr. J. Jayalalitha, Madam Amma had given laptops for Tyagaraja Polytechnic. So we said that we had to help in terms of giving from our side. So we brought the Blackboard learning management system and incorporate that for the students. And we've also parallelly developed the Moodle platform and also adopted Pearson's lecture capture system. So all the classes were already recorded for the past 3 years. So students to go back in time and look at it. And then once the COVID hit, we were wondering how to keep the classes on and keep the examinations on and things like that. So Hire Me, which actually started as a job portal platform to enable jobs, we kind of pivoted that as a educational tech startup and brought in proctoring examinations. So we've been using it across India. So 60 colleges and universities have conducted over 1 million exams since the pandemic in terms of conducting proctored exam. And that's conclude what I think we've had a great conversation around it. So now that let me pose this question to Dr. Salevahanan. The COVID has changed the dynamics of higher education. So do you think this trend is going to continue, sir, in terms of post the pandemic? How much of digital will we see? Will we see the blended learning? What do you think, Professor?
After this the pandemic situation, COVID-19, definitely this online courses will continue. But that's what we say that blended learning, that is face-to-face learning cannot be replaced. So face-to-face learning plus online learning should be there. This is what we expect.
Sure. Thank you. And Dr. Sasiprabha, madam.
Yes, sir. As sir told. See, even before this pandemic, our AICT or UGC, so they used to say to us, you have to have blended learning. But only few institutions could able to adopt the blended learning so far. But this pandemic has made everybody to learn about the importance of blended learning, how to do blended learning, and no other way. One way it has got a lot of challenges, but the COVID has given the opportunities also for us to learn and then adapt the blended learning. And see, if you see the computer science department is concerned, so most of the laboratory sessions we can able to easily conduct in online also. And first, one-to-one interaction is also possible. If a particular faculty wanted to correct the errors of a particular students, or if you want to guide the student in his lab session, it is easily possible in online also. Except the hardcore engineering departments like mechanical or aeronautical, and then the biotechnology laboratory sessions alone, it's difficult. Other than that, all the circuit branches, the use of virtual laboratories and remote laboratories and the online laboratories, it is possible. So, and then online teaching also, few of the classes we can able to make. And it's a main interesting thing is that we can able to easily get resources from industries and resources from other institutions across the globe. So previously, if a professor wants to take a class for our students, we have only few Skype sessions, but that will not count as a lecture hour. Okay, as a value-added provision, we can able to consider that Skype sessions or other webinars earlier. Now, since we are able to conduct the classes in online, and everybody has got the mindset to accept those classes, so now we can able to accommodate our partnering institutions, experts also along with our courses. So this collaboration is very easy now. That's why I hope even after pandemic, we can go 50% online. My strong opinion is that we can go very well with the 50% in online, where we can involve industry experts, involve other professors of other institutions, and our own staff members, and remaining 50% we can have our face-to-face classes also. Okay, this is my opinion, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Dr. Anand Samuel, sir, how do you think, once we have come online and things like that, do you think the pedagogy has changed or allowed them to, because earlier you would teach for the median of the class or the lower person of the class, and now online has allowed you to have 2 or 3 different versions of learning. So how are you thinking of adapting that or something from VIT's perspective, sir?
Yeah, actually, this is a very important point that we need to discuss and understand the reality. Nowadays, when most of the colleges, I'm not saying all, most of the colleges, when they say that, yes, now we have started our online lecturing right from March mid itself, when we go near and find out, what they do is that all the teachers, they think that, instead of going to the classroom and teaching to them the same content, same methodology, same pedagogical tools if they use, and then sit before the computer and then finish their job, they are thinking that that is the online mode of education. I just want to, emphatically say that, that is not. It is not. We must understand that in online mode, it's not only done in an Indian context. Even on abroad, no, this same problem is continuing. In online mode, extensive research has been done, and they have proved that the retaining capacity or the people's patience to listen to something in the online mode, sitting before the cell phone, before the computer or before the laptop, is definitely not more than 30 minutes. That's a maximum. So that means our online mode classes should not have more than 30 minutes of lecturing. This we have understood, and we have trained all our teachers with a different kind of a pedagogy. What has been observed is that, and a lot of research has been done. When we unearthed all the research that has been done on online learning, again, it is not online teaching we're talking about, it's online learning, right? See, they have studied intensely the Bloom's taxonomy and how it has been applied in regular mode, face-to-face mode, and how it should be different in online mode. In Bloom's taxonomy, there are 6 levels. The first is now comprehension and knowledge. So the model that has been arrived at finally across the globe is that if you want to go for online education, you must have this first 2, knowledge and comprehension, should be made to be learned by the students before they come to the class. So we bring in the flipped classroom methodology. And so I will give the students some assignment. It can be written, or it can be seeing a video or reading some books, whatever it is. So we make them read and understand the first two levels at home and come to the class. When they come to the class with that kind of a reading or visual, seeing something in the video and then coming back, they are in a different mode and they are ready to ask questions. So what we say is that the half an hour where lecturing should be oriented towards clearing their doubts and maybe giving them some clues, explaining the concepts and all that. That should not take more than 30 minutes. And in the remaining 30 minutes, we should have the second, the third and the fourth level of Bloom's taxonomy, namely the application and analyzing work. So this will be given as an exercise. So maybe I'll be touching upon that the project-based learning also there later on. But right now, the Bloom's taxonomy level 3 and 4 are done in the classroom by half an hour lecturing, explaining the concepts, and the remaining half an hour giving them activities to take care of the application and analyzing skills. And then in the class, with giving them exercises, homework on the last two levels, namely synthesizing and evaluating. So if this is done, then we are justifying the online education. Online learning will take place. If we fail to do this, if you're going to just go to the sit before the laptop and then lecture and give 1 hour lecture like what we do in the classroom, it is not online education. We'll be failing in our duty. So that's what we do at VIT. We are happy about it. And right now, whether if you ask a student, would you like to stay back in the same situation or go to college? 99.99% of the students will say, no, I'm fed up. I want to go back to the college. And please understand that it's not the right answer, and they themselves will understand that it is not the right answer. Yes, during pandemic, sitting at home 24/7 and then saying that I don't want to go to the classroom for face-to-face, it's understandable. But what we should ask is that if the pandemic is over and if you are free to go anywhere you want, at that point in time, would you like to have online mode or face-to-face? 99.99% will say, I would like to have online mode. So that's my point.
Thank you, sir. That's very good. The concept of how you're taking this forward from a pedagogy wise, and Professor Kaliraj, I think you had mentioned about arts and science, and how you have modeled around the 2030 vision, and Governor has come in and implemented the future vision. So, if you could say, what was the 2030 vision and how COVID has helped you come there, and so what more needs to be done? That would be great, sir.
It's very simple. The Chancellor's Vision 2030 is he wanted to prepare the roadmap for the education institutions in Tamil Nadu, how we are going to face the challenges of job opportunities. That time when we prepared in November or December in Tamil Nadu, there was no COVID, situation in India. But the governor was very, very particular about all the vice chancellors. All vice chancellors we met and we started preparing the roadmap. And the Bharatiya University is the one we submitted first. Then our Mother Teresa University, then other people, they started working on that. And the most important thing is the curriculum. Because whatever the NIRF ranking parameters that you're having it now in 2020, how you are going to make the job opportunities to more in 23, 26, 30, and how you are going to make changes in the curriculum in such a way the students are suitable for the type of job that is going to be available in 2023 and 2026. Now, after the pandemic, the job situation is going to be changed. Now, the Chancellor's vision is at any point of time, a student should be having at least 2 or 3 opportunities for which he has to keep himself prepared and get ready for the employability. So for that, we made it as a more industry participation in preparation of our curriculum and more number of certificate courses, which you can do it in online courses more, whether you are having pandemic or no pandemic. It is not possible for the industries to come to the university and make the, all the teaching. So it is possible for us to make arrangement with the industrialists and overseas experts. And even now we started preparing the MSc Cybersecurity curriculum and syllabus by using the overseas experts and a lot of webinars for teaching our teachers. The most important thing is to making our teachers suitable for teaching and making the students who are employable for the next 10 years. So that is a vision of the universities in Tamil Nadu. They have already prepared for that. And in Bharatiya University have already implemented in all our curriculum has been changed in such a way how these components has to be incorporated, which is fitting for the sociology or economics or biotechnology or bioinformatics. And now we are teaching the teachers, and we are using the platform of online platform for teaching the teachers. And one more thing that we are doing is for the English language is going to be common for the UG for all the affiliated colleges of Tamil Nadu. For that, we have to the communicative English and professional English. So we are teaching our teachers and preparing the master teachers to prepare how to have the professional English teaching, the teaching of the professional expert teaching English to the students. So here we can use the online platform. Even after the pandemic period is over, it will be possible for us to go for the industry-oriented certificate courses and certificate courses using the overseas. And the most important thing is the globalization. For the globalization, we are already having the link with Indo-Canadian programs, and a program with Melbourne University would like to have online, the blended programs. So we can have the, offline courses in India, and online materials can be delivered from them, and they can have the online classes from the Melbourne University or the Canadian University, and we can have the joint certification program. Whether the pandemic is there or not, the online courses and e-content is continued to be there, and it has given the way for saving the time of the industry, saving the time of the global expert to travel from one part of the country to the other, this one continent, and it is going to be successful. And the COVID-19 has paved the way how the educationists has to adapt themselves for the situation. If they're able to adapt, those universities who are going to adopt, they will be able to sustain. The universities, those who are not able to adapt, they will not be able to sustain. So many, academic institutions, the affiliated institutions, they are ready to face the challenges and they are proactive. So that's the view of me.
Thank you, Professor. I think that's a good snapshot across. We got a wide dimension of post-COVID, how it will be. And so I think from our side, using Hire Me Gold, because the different students have different aspirations. So sitting in a class on the second year or third year, so the one student aspires to go work in Infosys, somebody says, I want to work in Amazon, somebody says they want to be an entrepreneur. So there are different paths, but we teach the same. So we've adopted the Bloom's taxonomy level. So depending on where you are, the course content is different. So the student can take the Hire Me Gold platform and then benchmark from there. So sitting on a class now, they can visualize what they want to be and how is that class going to be effective then. And they are able to bridge the aspirations. So that's what we try to do there. And let me just get to Madam Dr. Sasiprabha, the question. So I think Mr. Dr. Anand Samuel had commented saying that keeping the attention span of the students, for 30 minutes, things like that. In an online mode, how are you able to keep the attention span across through the session? So any tips that you can give us, share us, that would be great. And thank you.
Yes, sir. See, this online is actually making us avoiding the monotonous lectures. So that is the hands of the individual faculty member, how they are making the sessions interesting. So in between, they can play videos relevant to their talk, that particular session. They can make a video, they can conduct some quiz programs, they can conduct other activities. Like that, it is in the hands of particular faculty member who drive this his or her session interesting in online. So then our offline classes, online has made these provisions more possible, because videos immediately he or she can able to play the videos relevant to the particular session to make them more understanding about the concepts. And the same, say for example, if they are talking about Ohm's law, so immediately they can able to draw a circuit, or they can able to play a video relevant to the particular concept. So then the particular staff members delivery the delivery through other mode and other platform and from other views will also add in this particular session, that it will make them to understand it much better. So this is the way we normally we have given the orientation to our faculty members before the online classes started for this year. August 18th we started the classes for second year, third year and final year. So it is going on in full swing. So we conducted the 2 days orientation for our faculty members, how to behave, how to be there in the online sessions. So right from say they should be presentable, and they got to see the videos of all students. Everybody should make their video on, so that the other activities, other expressions can be seen, and they can be, people can be. So these kind of orientations we have made. Also, we have guided our faculty members how to conduct the classes interestingly without boring. So to avoid the monotonous kind of lectures from the same faculty member, so these are the few tips we have already given to our faculty members to make the class interesting, so that students will be of interesting to learn, and he'll sit and continuously for 1 hour. So we have actually given the class for 1 hour, including this various other activities. We have made the classes 1 hour, and it is going on well only. And we have received the feedback from students also. It is good. In between, we are sending the feedback links, how the session is. Like that, it was actually going in a full-fledged mode. So as of now, we don't have any issues with our students and faculty members. But now than our face-to-face class teachings, but now the faculty members are actually having more workload, because they have to prepare for online classes, they have to upload their videos, they have to upload the other contents, and they have to make the video presentations, preparations. So all those things are taking their time. But in long run, if they are preparing for one subject, so next subject for the same subject for the next year, it will be useful for them. And the advantage is that the same video lectures, their sessions are being recorded, and we are giving to the students. They can also view the sessions later. So these kind of provisions are given in online classes to make the class interesting.
Sure. Thank you, madam. I think one of the comments in the comments stage was Dr. Lakshmi Teligamam. So she was telling that, like, the classes, continuous online classes are boring and things like that. So I think Dr. Samuel put it correctly, saying that, like, we shouldn't have more than half an hour class and things like that. So, and then one of the unique advantages with the online platform is that everyone has front row seats. So otherwise there are backbenchers. So everyone has got the same distance. So you're able to visualize that. So what we have done at HireMe, actually, we've done a Zoom analytics, Zoom, Google Classroom, and Microsoft Teams. So we've done analytics. So it tells the teacher how many students are paying attention, interested, bored, not paying attention. So this visualization comes in across as a meter, and through that analytics, so it gives a feedback so that the teacher can alter the program in terms of that. So let me take this next question to Dr. Salaivahanan. Sir, I think you had commented about project-based learning and the CDIO approach. So if you can share with us, it will be interesting, because one of the questions was continuous online classes are boring. So how can you make it more interesting and things like that? Perhaps your CDI.
Yeah. For engineering education, project-based learning is very important, because all students should have practical concepts, and they should have hands-on training. For that, definitely they should be in the college, and they can do projects. Through that they can learn. And one more thing is, through online, definitely for theory subjects it is well and good. For practical-oriented subjects and problem-oriented subjects, this is very difficult. And moreover, for professional skills and disciplinary knowledge in their domains, and interpersonal skills like teamwork and communication, project-based learning will give that they are important for all students. So that's why we introduced project-based learning by being a member of Valtech has become the first member of CDIOT. So we have introduced now in our curriculum project-based learning that they have to do at least one project in each semester. This is what we are doing.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Anand Samuel, sir, from when we talk of online, there is symmetric learning, synchronous learning, and asynchronous learning. So because everyone thinks that the teacher should teach continuously and things like that, and though we are the third largest bandwidth consumers in India in terms of state-wise, Tamil Nadu, even though there are a lot of rural students and things like that. So how are you conceptualizing this, the whole concept of symmetric, synchronous learning versus asynchronous learning, if you can guide us there?
Right. We have established an online institute at VIT, and we have invested heavily, as I told earlier, on establishing a world-class studio. And we have started producing the contents and recording the lectures for online courses. And as you said, there are two modes there. One is synchronous mode, where when the lecture is being delivered, there'll be students on the other side sitting and listening to it. And so interactions can be direct, and then it will be happening. That's one mode. In the asynchronous mode, it will be recorded and it will be sent to the students. And so whenever they want, they can play it and listen to it. Both the modes have got advantages and disadvantages. We cannot spot out one saying that no, this is good and that is not good, and so on and so forth. The reason being, in the online education mode, the major advantage is the flexibility. And anytime I want to learn, I can learn. So that is a kind of concept. And what we are doing ultimately is that, we are making this available to all the industrialists, all the working professionals also. So in that context, yes, asynchronous mode is very effective. And so since we have understood both the pros and cons of both the modes, what we are doing right now is that we are going ahead with synchronous mode of online education for all our students at this point in time. So we have the timetable and the slots are made, and the teachers will be sitting at home and following all the norms. The templates are available with them, and so following the norms what we give, they deliver the lecture, and questioning will be there, and the teacher can even group them up in Google groups and so on, and then go to different groups and view what they are doing. So these facilities are all available there in the platform that we are using. And so synchronous mode is being followed for our regular students. And we also have asynchronous mode for two types of people. One is people who have the arrears, who want to equip themselves for coming again to write the examination. And we are also offering some online certification programs for the industry experts and industry workers or experts or whatever it is. And for them, synchronous will not work because timing will never match. And so we're going for asynchronous mode. So we have both for different kind of people. So people can choose whatever that they want. That's what we're doing at VIT.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Kaliraj, sir, as from Bharatidasan side, so it's a kind of a government institution, like quasi-government and things like that. So especially this, everyone talks of the digital divide and saying that the rural people don't have access and things like that. When Abdul Kalam visited us at Sona for our Golden Jubilee of Tyagaraja Polytechnic, so he said that you should have Sona Pura. So you should adopt a village and then develop villages, provide urban amenities to rural areas. And there also Government of India, AICTE, all have had the Margadarshan scheme, where they're asking more and more institutions to adopt some rural institutions and things like that. Why I'm asking this question is, like, if you think, if you see Tamil Nadu today, I think only 12% of the engineering colleges have got 50% pass in the affiliated colleges. So now through digital, it's going to, we have done the have-nots, because all the people here today are leading institutions in NIRF. I think my entire panel is in the top 25, top 50, things like that. So how do we take a lower institutions, there are hundreds of them, So being from a quasi-government institution, so how do you see this? And do you think universities should adopt a few villages? And are you doing any of that kind of stuff? It would be great to hear your insights. Thank you. You're on mute, sir.
So the universities might be able to adopt 3 or 4 villages, but that is not sufficient because we have so many villages. So we are motivating all our affiliated colleges and our government engineering colleges, each one of them to adopt at least 1 village. And the best institute having a best infrastructure to adopt at least 2 or 3 other academic institutions for training the faculty members and training and giving the opportunity to the students from that institute to use the opportunities also. Unless the affiliated institutions are being motivated by various means, it is not possible for one university to adopt 2 or 3 villages. That is not sufficient. And one of the questions that you asked for the previous speakers, I want to give additional points regarding how to make the people interesting in the online classes and all. The gifted child, the gifted student, they don't need teachers. They can pick up from any mode of information and they can collect it. Only those who are moderate and poor students we have to teach. Now, there are different kinds of teachers with different kind of skill, whether it is online or offline. Unless the teachers, they understand the subject, it is not possible for them to deliver either via online or offline. And definitely there should be a method for evaluating the faculty. Today, to evaluate the faculty, to go from assistant professor to associate professor, then from there they have to attend some some of the courses, this and that. The future, you have to go for online rating, which is very easy in our digital learning. Online rating of all the faculty members, that should be giving the credit points to them to get evaluated from from assistant professor to associate, associate to professor. Only the best teachers should be able to come up to the level of that situation. He is going to learn, he is going to understand. You can even learn from your own students, and you can understand from your friends. And you should not think, especially in the government institutions, once you become an assistant professor, you will be pushed up to the professor without any means. It is a matter of time. You have to attend some courses, such as approved courses and some publications, whether it is going to be useful to the society or not, whether you are going to patent it or not, whether it is going to reach the society or not. You need some numbers. They are going to reach as a professor. They are going to be so many things. The online mode, the pandemic situation has to create the meaning that the student rating the faculty members and the promotion has to be based on the rating of the students. Then you can ask the question how you are going to monitor them. If you are a good teacher, only you can monitor. Otherwise, student will switch on the your computer and they'll go off. That is going to happen. You can't avoid it. If you are a good teacher, if your method of teaching is good, and if you are following the best practices, the students are going to listen to you, whether it is a 30 minutes or 1 hour. Even you can see it in the offline classes. All the students are not going to be happy for all the lectures. For some professors or teachers, the people will not miss the class. For some of them, either they sleep or they don't come for the class. So that situation is going to be there for the online or offline. Then to monitor the students, you have to go for the continuous evaluation of the students by questions, quiz, and short-term examination. And you have to continuously have to assess them. You don't know when the COVID is going to leave. It might be in November, December, or after 2 years also. Whoever is admitted in 2020, you might go for the continuous evaluation only by online mode, and you might have to go give the degree. So we have to get prepared for that.
Thank you, sir. Madam, there's a question from Dr. Gandhimati about mental health of students. I know you spoke about that a little bit, and you said that you are trying to keep even culturals and things like that. So if you can share how you are caring about the mental health, that will be great. So.
Yes, sir. So very, very, very interesting question, sir, actually. Now, from the institution side, how we are engaging students, that is very, very important. So through classes, we are engaging, and we are engaging students in conducting workshops. Through workshops, we are engaging. And then we are actually conducting quiz programs, contests, and then hackathons, where the students are actually only representing it. So in that way, we are engaging. So that too, we cannot give the responsibility to all students. So there are students, or 10% students are getting the opportunity to organize those events, and just to engage other people who wanted to do some performance. So for them only we conducted the culturals. How we conducted the culturals is very interesting, because I was surprised when I was attending that final grand finale. So what they did, the students, they themselves have coined the words of the various events. Like dance competition, they have made us a dance-a-thon. Like what are the terms we are used to with this pandemic? So similarly, drama they conducted, that drama name they mean as dramaic, that is pandemic. So like that, what are the new words we learned in this pandemic period? All those with the use of the new words, it's very, very creative effort of our students, particularly the architecture students. So they did excellent work, and then what they did, they conducted these events. So the students who they are actually dancing in their rooftop, and then in front of their house, they dance and they recorded and then sent. And then drama also. So they actually shoot with the use of cell phone itself. They have shoot the dramas inside their houses, and then we have a team. They evaluated their performance, and then they distributed the prizes in online only. So this is how we engaged our students. It's students are really interested to do that. So then the same practice we conducted. It was actually started the architecture students, and the same practice we continued for other departments also. So for organizing these events and for shortlisting those people, and finally, so along with the faculty members, we engage our students also. So in that way, one kind of stress we were able to balanced from the student side. And then other ways, like laboratory sessions, some activities we are given. And this Coursera, actually the Coursera has given these courses in free of cost. So we were actually telling the students to engage themselves by attending these Coursera courses, because in Satyabama Institute of Science and Technology, so every second year and third year student, they need to undergo a professional internship with the industries. So this time, due to pandemic, we cannot send, even industries are not allowing the students to take them as interns there. So instead of that, we have asked the students to undergo this type of courses from Coursera, and upon the submission of those certificates, we were actually compensated that internship, that professional training with these courses. So those kind of arrangements we did. Main thing is mental health, how we can able to manage and maintain. So this home atmosphere is one thing. So how that part we cannot take care. So other academic part, we're able to engage them during this pandemic through this type of arrangements. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. So next, I have a question from the audience. Dr. Karthikeyan has asked a question about virtual labs. How can we have virtual labs do that? So could I address this to both Dr. Salaivan and Dr. Anand Samuels?
Dr. Valiappa, I have another webinar. You have to excuse me.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kalira. So any closing comments in case you want to have a closing comment? We have 7 minutes left, so you can also, if there's any, otherwise we'll...
It's okay. Everything is fine, and
sure. Thank you.
I'm happy with your discussion and your moderation.
Thank you. Thank you, Doctor. Thank you. Appreciate it. So virtual labs.
Yeah, actually, hello. Actually, in the website I had seen one Australia-based company named Yamona Times has come up with the remote lab concept. The students can access the actual hardware from remote. And this kind of technologies also are the need of the hour. But of course, for coding practice and all, already HackerEarth, HackerRank, with the open test case and the hidden test case are available. And another important, this one I want to mention here, Now we know very well that all the universities are struggling for the conduct of examinations to test the students. Now, government also has announced that every arrear exam, and there is no arrear exam, and they want to give pass to everyone. So that is also another, not only teaching and learning, and finally this assessment also is important. There also we are lagging.
Sir, I think you have to unmute.
Yeah, Dr. Samuel, about the virtual labs.
Right. I think all of us, I think we know, but I'll just reiterate that there are 5 types of practical experimentation procedures that are adopted in higher education. One is purely analytical. The second one is computer program based experiments. Third one is simulation experiments. The fourth one is physical experiments. Most of the experiments that what comes to our mind, fall under this category, physical experiments. And the fifth one are wet lab experiments. And among the 5, what I want to tell and what we are practicing in VIT is that first 4 are possible virtually. And of course, 4 with a little bit of difficulty and with a little bit of expenses, it will be possible. Only the 5th one, the wet lab experiments, is just not possible through online mode. And analytical, we know, and program based, we know that we can do it. Simulation also, everything is very clear. But I just want to tell you how we make the physical experiments. For example, let us say in mechanical engineering, if you have a lathe, milling machine, and in maybe civil engineering, like fluid flow experiments, these are all the physical experiments what we are contemplating. There are machines involved, and so how do we do it? How do we do it remotely? Is again using 2 different methods. One is that in many of the experiments, of course, with the help of many industries who have come to our rescue, we have used CPS, cyber physical systems, to connect the experiments there and the students in various places across the country. And of course, the point is that when an experiment is done in the university, the 60 students will be there in different places doing the experiments in different times. But to safeguard, for safety aspect, there should be one mechanical available there in the lab. So that we make sure. And we have the cyber physical system based, what shall I say, hardware internet connectivity with hardware interface, using which our students are doing experiments even on lathe, and it's possible to do experiments on lathe and numerical machines and milling machine and so on and so forth. And there is another set of experiments where we use VPN. So we know that it's virtual private network connectivity. Again, if you do a little bit of work and then do the hardware interface for using VPN, again, the remaining 50% of the experiments, which are physical experiments, can be made available to the students, and the experiments can be conducted remotely. And the point is that here in VPN, again, it's necessary that we need to have somebody there in the lab. So we are managing all our labs, analytical, program-based, simulation, and physical experiments in the labs on a virtual mode. But what we are struggling is with wet labs, especially for the chemistry and for biotechnology. We don't have at this point in time any solace, but we are asking the students to come when it is possible and do the experiments. That's what we practice at VIT.
Sure. Thank you, Professor. I think I think we just have a couple of more minutes. So if you can have some closing comments from Dr. Sasi Prabha and then Dr. Salavanan as well. So,
yes,
thank you.
So, this kind of forums are really it's a good kind of forums to discuss and share our each and everybody's ideas and how we are actually managing this period and how we are going to manage the subsequent months we do not know when this pandemic is going to end. But still, we have to engage our students and faculty members academically. Otherwise, engaging students is one side and engaging faculty is also another side. So what are all the activities we cannot do during this time? That let us leave. And other activities, it's writing papers. Now, so though we cannot able to do all the wet lab activities, other research activities physically, experimentally, but we can do the writing papers, review articles can be written. My complete suggestion to all the panelists and other participants here is we can make use of the right period in writing proposals, writing review articles, writing books, and writing book chapters, writing their publications. So this way we can engage, and then this period we can have more online content. So you see now the Coursera is selling the courses, and other platforms are selling the courses from the professors of other top institutions. So we are actually, our students wanted to attend the course taught by other professors, but the same subject, I also attended few sessions, but same subject when our faculty members are teaching, so we have better than resources here, but that was not actually reached globally. So this period they can able to make use, and they can deliver, apart from delivering the online classes, they can use their time potentially in making their online materials ready, online content ready, so that globally India will also have a reach. And and also we can give the assignments to students who are interested, who are students who want to do some kind of product development. So we can give some assignments to them to involve themselves in bringing a product, making a startup, and incubations. Those activities we can able to proceed in this period. So I think this 2 quarters, almost 2 quarters we have completed. These 2 quarters have made us a platform for the next 1 decade. So these learnings or experience, whatever we learned in this 2 quarters, will be really helpful for us to proceed for the next 1 decade, so that we have to bring our institutions up. We can bring our country also up in education. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Doctor. Dr. Sullivan, just a quick 1 minute, sir.
We know that life is real. So we have to work with the people, and the students should get training in teamwork. And also they should improve their communication skills for their future endeavors. So we are praying Almighty to come out of this pandemic situation, COVID-19. And all students, we want to meet everyone in the college campus. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Samuel, just a quick 1 minute last conclusion.
Yes, sir. In the higher education scenario, all of us were moving in different directions. Now pandemic has come, and then yes, put the restrictions, and now it has shown the direction. Only one direction. There's no other go. In my opinion, it is the right direction and the positive direction. We have started moving, but the best is yet to come, and I'm positive that best will come soon.
Thank you, sir. I think it's a great panel today. I mean, I'm sure there's exhaustive discussions is possible because the plethora of experience that the entire panel has. It's truly a beehive of knowledge here today. And I was going through some of the comments and chats through the session. And though it is Tamil Nadu, I think the eminent panel that I have, we have comments from Hoshiarpur, from Punjab and from UP and things like that. So people and professors across India have been there. So I think my concluding 20 seconds is that the new education policy, the NEP, has truly come up at the right time. Hopefully governments will not see politics and look at languages and things like that to keep differences aside and to adapt the new education policy. I think the state should come forward. I think Karnataka has done a great thing to say that they will be implementing NEP with the first state to come in. I'm sure if Tamil Nadu takes this too and liberalize the education today, we were looking at some of the compliances that we need to do to run a college in India. You need to have 57 clearances every year. So it's, I think it's the right time to have a liberalization. And one of the last questions that I got was on doubling student enrollment. So, through online, since we have established a robust online system, I think we should utilize this opportunity and to offer rural students or whoever it is, the better institution should share the best practices to institutions not that good, and then perhaps share some fees or something like that. That way, the overall education will come in. So I'm very glad that we were able to throw light across to the entire audience here today. And I thank ELTS as well as Digital Learning for giving me this opportunity to do this. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I just request Krishna to play the video. We will move it to the next session by 2:30. Thank you, Dr. Anand sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Choco sir. Thank you, Sasi Prabha ma'am.